Hi, everyone. It's Pat here. I wanted to share some really interesting and meaningful and relevant content for you today. I'm just back from I'm having trouble talking today. I'm just back from an incredible conference in Vancouver. Now, the focus and the emphasis on the conference was health and wellness. One of the reasons that I went, just one of the many, I always have goals when I go to a conference, was actually for a change of scenery and a change of energy for me. Because as many of you know, those of you who follow me, it's been a rather difficult month to 2 months. And so getting away at times is a very good thing. Now, I went to the conference with 3 specific business goals. At the same time, as many of you know, I watch human behavior. I'm always taking notes. And on the trip home, I was rather reflective and came up with the content for today's Facebook Live. I want to share with you 4 tactics to master your time and your life, because time it's becoming more and more precious to me. A, as I get older, and B, as I watch many of my friends who are ill and or dying. So time is precious. So I've come up and with some content summarized 4 key tactics, which I know I'm going to be implementing on a very conscious and intentional way, and I want you to give consideration to this too. So one of the things that really meant a lot to me last week when I was in Vancouver is that one person in particular made an effort to drive in an hour through heavy Vancouver traffic to come and spend time with me. That meant a lot, but one of the reasons this all came together is because she's been a friend for, close to 20 years, if not longer. And the reason that we came together last week is because we had both made the commitment over all these years. She now lives in Vancouver and I'm in Ontario, to stay connected. So when an opportunity comes up to have FaceTime together, it's a no-brainer. And so that's one of the key points, is I was very grateful for that time together with her and with others in Vancouver. But let me give you the 4 tactics that I've come up with, which I believe will be helpful to you. Number 1 is to plan your day. No brainer, right? However, I know a lot of people get to the end of a day and they sit back and think, oh my gosh, where did the day go? Where did the day go? For me, a successful life is nothing more than a string of successful days. And so that's why I say to you, make a plan for your day. You know, businesses have plans, coaches work with plans, clients work with plans. You should have a plan for your day. So I prepare mine always at the end of the day for the next day. You need to figure out what works for you, but I highly encourage you. Tactic number 1, make a plan for the day. I call that intentional living. That's really what it's all about, is intentional living. So what I do is I make a list, I check things off, and most of you know I work in 3s. I focus on 3 things a day, and nothing gives me more pleasure than checking them off as the day goes by. And when you get things done, you're living productively. That's what it comes down to. So also, my thought on this is the fact that daily accomplishments are the building blocks of a successful life. Take that in. Daily accomplishments are the building blocks of a successful life. So plan your day. That's tactic number 1. Number 2, and this is something I do, and again, oftentimes when things come easy to us, I know we sit back and we think everybody does that, don't they? And I've come to realize, especially lately, most people don't do this one. So number 2 tactic is to make an appointment with yourself. So in your calendar, those of you who do have a plan and those of you who want to live your best life, make a plan for yourself. In other words, schedule yourself in to your calendar and make it non-negotiable. And it's not that you need to explain to anybody what that time block is for. I mean, if you put down, for me, for instance, I was going to yoga at 10 a.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It just showed I'm out of the office. No explanation required. It's my business. It's my life. However, having that in the calendar makes it a non-negotiable, because that is for me, and I've scheduled me in there, just as any commitment to anybody else client, vendor, supplier, team member is non-negotiable. So make an appointment for yourself, put you in there. So I know that most people have conversations like this, and I've listened to it. I heard a lot of this last week. Oh, let's talk sometime. Let's get together sometime. Yeah, let's do that soon. Well, soon's not on the calendar. You know, I had an email from my best friend in Alberta, West Coast again, this morning, and she said, I'm sorry I missed you this weekend. Let's talk next weekend. So I wrote back and said, absolutely. How about Sunday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern? Does that work? And she wrote back and said, yes, let's put it in the calendar. That's the way you want to live your life, intentionally. Those conversations around let's get together soon most often don't happen. And that leads to regrets. You don't want that. So make an appointment for yourself and get that in. So what this tactic does, making the appointment, this technique, and I made a few notes here because I want to make sure I hit the key points. First of all, it helps you get things done. Secondly, it helps you to avoid procrastination, and that's a big one for many of you. Thirdly, scheduling yourself in creates self-discipline, particularly when it comes to scheduling in your self-care, your exercise, your time with aging parents, perhaps. So it really develops self-discipline. And lastly, it really teaches you to respect your time. Now, isn't that important too? Respecting your time. Because again, life is short. So that's tactic number 2. Number three is use the a little bit at a time approach. Now, I have the habit, and I call it a success habit, of working in 15-minute time blocks. I always have my timer on my phone here. I always have the timer set in 15-minute time blocks for me to get something done. It helps me to stay focused. I really come to respect and acknowledge how fast 15 minutes goes, and yet I just dive right on in and get things done. So you might want to look at that approach in a little bit at a time, particularly when you're working on a big project. Right now I'm working on my book, and my buddy Carrie, I think she was here, I saw her there. Carrie and I are both working on projects. So like I said last week, we set up our accountability work time. So this morning we were accountable at 10:30. We checked in. What are you doing? What are you doing? 11:30, we checked back in. So these are big projects. You're not going to get a book done in an hour. But I will tell you, when you schedule a little bit at a time for things like writing a book, I have friends who are in the process of listing their house for sale. When you consider the whole concept of decluttering after living in a house for 30, 35, 40 years, that's not going to happen in an hour either. So do it a little bit at a time, schedule it daily, be consistent in the time that you schedule it daily. So again, it becomes a habit and you're making progress. And that's a good thing because it goes back to my other tactic on checking things off. So same time every day, be consistent. And then the other part in here is number 4, just to kind of wrap it up. Number 4 is know your most productive time. Now, for me, it's morning, and we all have a body clock. Figure out and acknowledge what your body clock is telling you. Mine is morning. I'm very productive in the mornings, and then I start to fade in the afternoons. That's when I do different types of work. Oftentimes it might be phone calls, if you will, or answering emails, or whatever the case might be. Know your body clock, figure out what time works best for you, and go with that. So I would say that that part of it, and actually all 4 tactics, it will help you be productive, live your best life, live intentionally. What it also does is it removes guilt, it gets you past procrastination, and what I love to wrap it up with is the fact that successful and happy people don't find time, they make time. So in my morning reading today, I was reading Ephesians chapter 5, section 16, and it came in beautifully, tied in beautifully with what I wanted to share today. It says, make the best use of your time despite all the difficulties of these days, because tomorrow's promised to no one. All right, that's it. 4 tactics. Choose 1, choose 3, choose all of them, and go make it your best day. Thanks for being here, everyone.